Okay. There we go. So we have a few things to cover. This probably won't be one of our shorter meetings. There's a lot of stuff going on. We'll start off with just the update on the financial statements. I did update our utility aging reports. We haven't had a finance committee meeting in a few months, so I have that updated through January. Unfortunately, February's information won't be available till later today. I did add some more utility information. I thought I would give you an update on our shutoffs and also where we're at on the ARPA, the utility assistance that we're doing through CAP. Scott and Robert have a sole source purchase on the agenda for our upcoming council meeting, so they'll go through that. We need to talk about the vertical evacuation project design. This won't be on the agenda until probably the first meeting in March, but we do have some information to share and just want to get out in front of that as soon as we can. So we'll be talking about that today and also at the Public Works Committee meeting on Thursday. And then we'll wrap it up with the city administrator and mayor's updates. So Sarah, if you want to go down to the financial statements. Everything's looking good. All the adjustments we made at the end of the year put all of our funds back into positive amounts, so that's good. The one item I did have my eye on, you'll see down at the bottom, the property taxes is at a -48. That'll catch itself back up. We get a certain amount of money. It's just the timing on when the treasurer's office collects it. But I do have my eye on the building permits. There was a 51% decrease from January 2021 to 2022. So that's something that we definitely need to keep a watch on and see if that trend continues and try to figure out what's going on with that. Scott, you have the permit numbers. Do you know, is anything obvious attributed to last month's decrease?
No, not yet. I don't have anything that would indicate as to why.
Okay. Well, we'll keep our eye on it. We should be wrapping up February here in a few more weeks, and we'll see what's going on with it then. Any questions on the financials?
I just have it's not on the financials, but is there anybody see anything on the aquatic master plan that some of us think was funded and Nick thought it was funded, but can't seem to find it anywhere?
Yes, we have been able to locate it. I've got Sarah Bisson who's writing something up on that, and she'll give that to me shortly. But we have been able to locate where it was. Angie, you can speak to the funding part if you want to.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out where it's at specifically in the budget. I think it's in the storm fund. Yeah. And I believe someone was going to reach out to Nick to confirm. It was done in all of the chaos with the 2021 storm rate increase and budget amendment. So it was kind of buried and we kind of had to unravel what happened with that. But it is budgeted. I think the number was 65,000, and I believe it's in the professional services in the storm drain fund, but we were going to confirm that with Nick.
Cool. And we did learn a little information on it. It's that Nick actually was hoping to give this to the new environmental specialist position that he'd hoped to hire. And that's like sort of the reason it never got moved forward. Obviously, we never hired that environmental specialist, but Sarah Bisson has tracked down some information on it, and she will probably be looking into it. So I will get more out to the entire council once I have that all wrapped up.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Okay. Facility aging reports. Like I said, I just updated the last couple months. There's not much change. We didn't start doing shutoffs till January. So the next few months of numbers, I guess, will be more telling on how that's going. But this has just been pretty consistent since we hadn't been able to do shutoffs up through the end of January. The next page is kind of some interesting information, speaking of shutoffs. So I'm going to do this monthly. We do have two different cycles. So January is one cycle, and then February will be the other cycle of residential customers. So in January, we did 48 residential shutoffs. 25 have been remedied either through full payments or payment plans. We have 23 currently still shut off. I looked into that a little bit, and 18 of those have no usage. So I don't know that people are at those houses or properties at this point, but I'm sure once summer kicks in and people are back out here, some of those will get resolved as well. And then the other 5 are just some kind of chronic, shall we say, problem accounts where we're having illegal turn-ons and we've had to send code enforcement out. So I think the ones that actually, the remedied ones are the typical, they just came, they worked with CAP, came in, paid, set up a payment arrangement, and then the rest of them will probably be resolved, like I said, this summer when people come back out to the beach. ARPA payments, we've received 13 through Coastal Community Action. The total so far is about 7,400. So I was pleased to see that. It's kind of nice. We do get batches of those probably about once a week. So people are using it, and we're happy with the progress on that. In the beginning, it took a little bit of, there were a few bugs to work out, but I think it's definitely going more smoothly. And then we're doing our February shutoffs tomorrow. So if anybody's out and about, if you could get the word out on that, I would appreciate it. Oh, all right. So we had the sole source purchase. That one, I didn't really add any documents. It'll be in the agenda that Sarah gets out, but Robert and Scott, do you just kind of want to speak to what you're going to present at the meeting on the 28th?
Yeah, Robert, I'll let you sort of speak to that because you were in agenda setting and I wasn't on that one. So.
Oh, okay. It's similar to the last two. So I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's between $17,000, $20,000, I think. And it's a bearing assembly. It's a long shaft that goes with some pumps that raise the water up above the screening system at the wastewater treatment plant, so it could fall back down into the next system. It's part of some proprietary equipment, and it's due to so that's why it's got to be a sole source. We've got to buy it from them, and it's due to be replaced because the gearbox that goes with all of that's being replaced shortly as well, and it's all kind of one unit. So yeah, $18,651.74. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's this one. It's just another kind of critical maintenance item that happens to be a sole source, so it needs to go to council for approval.
Yeah, it wasn't, the sole source resolutions are required to be approved by council, but this wasn't budgeted as well, so we will be asking for that budget modification. There's sufficient funds in our capital replacement fund to cover it, so we have no issues from the budget side. We have fund balances for when things like this pop up, so from that perspective, I thought it looked good. Questions on that one? Thanks for throwing that agenda bill up, Sarah. All right, you guys are making it too easy today. This is going to be the one that might have some time on it, though. Okay, so we are on to the vertical evacuation, and I will let Robert and Scott and Sarah take this one.
Sure, I'll just give you the big overview and then I'll turn it over to them. So this is really we're at that next stage of the vertical evacuation tower discussions where we're engaged in two things simultaneously. One is the design of that tower, and we have some better indications kind of what we need to do politically now that the levee for the school failed. We're going to be the only people that have a vertical evacuation structure clearly for some time in the city of Ocean Shores, and we're doing two things simultaneously. One is the design request to see what it will look like and what will be needed in order to construct it. And the second one is a peer review, which is, I believe, mandated in our contract. I'll let Sarah speak to that, where another outside organization will sort of assess what Deegan Kolb is doing in that process and how they're doing it for both, I think, kind of compliance issues and quality control issues. But I'll turn it over to the city engineer and Sarah, our grants writer, for any additional details.
I just second what Scott is saying here. We went out for statements of qualifications for designers for this vertical evacuation tower. The approximate cost there, we're waiting on a final proposal, but the approximate cost is there under engineering for Degg and Kolb. Peer review is required by the grant and the building code, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're double checking the assumptions, the calculations, the geotech, the tsunami modeling, and then they're certifying all that so that the building department could issue a building permit. And then on there you see $57,000, which includes taxes and some contingency, which is because the city will need to hire the drilling firm to do the geotechnical subsurface exploration work independently of the designer's contract.
Sarah, did you want to add anything?
I would like to add that it shows a match of $187,721.25. That is before we apply the Department of Commerce legislative portion of matching funds, which they have allocated up to $490,000 for our expenses, but it will be expended at the same rate at which we expend our match. So that picture of match is $187,000, but we would actually incur 50% of that. So out of the general fund matching share that we've allocated, the $729,000 or whatever that is, we have $93,860 that will come out of that portion, and then the Department of Commerce will kick in the same amount once we've finalized contract with them.
Rich?
So take just 2 seconds, get me up to speed. What was the hypothetical total budget for this project?
I think it was about 1.3 million.
Okay, so guys, educate me. Being in the free market my entire life, I've never seen engineering / architectural costs. I mean, normally they're in the 10%, 15% of the project. Educate me why this would be such a huge amount for engineering comparison to things I'm used to seeing in the free market.
So it is a high percentage. It was budgeted at somewhat less than that number. And not to defend any particular consultant, they do make assumptions when they're putting a budget together or a proposal. So one of the things that's driven this up on one side is geotech, because it hadn't looked at any site-specific geotech. And then I sent them the Department of Transportation soils report for the Ocean Lake Bridge, which is just up the street. And that started to kind of change the calculus a little bit. From my experience, when a project's fairly straightforward, like maybe a sidewalk project or a street project, then like 10%, you have these lower fees. And then when you get into other types of projects that are more complex, that's when the architects and engineers start to expect more. What makes this one unique is that it's what's called a risk category 4 structure. So that doesn't make it special from any other building, but what it comes down to is there's special kind of custom design in there, where if you go into the building code, like if you're going to build like a light frame construction house, it's prescriptive construction, you know, so many studs, your foundation's so deep for where you are, your seismic parameters, you just put in your zip code and it's so many accelerations. Whereas in this case, some of this information, since it's risk category 4, it's not just meant to save your life during an earthquake and then a tsunami, but it's also meant to be a serviceable structure afterwards, like you might expect a police station or a hospital. So they're literally going out to for seismic, they're going out to the Cascadia subduction zone and doing some statistics to come up with what that design earthquake would be. Whereas you'd usually just put in your zip code, you get some parameters. So there's a lot more happening here as far as this design that's custom, as opposed to something that's prescriptive. And that's about for that high number there. Again, I go back to look, what the city match is, or where our investment is far lower than that because the feds are paying for a lot of this. And that also being a federal project to bring in every little rule that we've got to follow to design a tsunami tower. But that's just off the top of my head. That's kind of what I can think of as why that number is higher than something you might typically see for a hotel development or a street project.
Robert, when you saw that dollar amount for the size of the project, did it disturb you?
I wouldn't say disturbed, it irritated me. This is actually the third iteration, so I've been working to bring their costs down. But Degg & Kolb did produce the initial estimate for the grant. And they were selected for this through the procurement process we have to follow, and they've come back with some numbers that were unexpectedly high, especially in geotech. Those are high. But again, we're paying at the most, our risk here is $187,000 and some change. But recognizing that it is, this is a higher end structure, it's really being designed to some forces that you just ordinarily don't put on a structure as far as being a tsunami, surviving a tsunami. And not only that, but the modeling and everything's necessary just to come up with those, what forces, how big does something or beefy does it need to be to resist those forces? So it's most definitely on the high end. But I would also say that in the tsunami world, if we were looking for additional funding later for construction, Degg & Kolb is the name. If you're going to FEMA looking for more money, these guys are kind of the it world in the tsunami design world right now. So there's something.
They kind of have a monopoly. They're kind of
well,
not a lot of competition.
They had competition. I mean, there were two other firms that proposed, but they're able to. You're right. They're able to say, hey, we just designed the shoalwater tower, which is really a small version of what we're going to do here. I worked really hard to strip out a lot of, they had a lot of meetings and stuff in their scope, but those are expensive. When you bring 5 engineers to Ocean Shores for all day, that's real money. I mean, it starts to add up quick. But yeah, they have, that project's actually, Roblin's is actually building that right now. So it actually looks like a building now. It's there. One can go and look at it. But yeah, they're kind of the it name. I personally, there were 2 other good firms here. I think they could do this. I don't know that once they really start looking at what they're getting into, that it would be a really different price, because we're asking for so much. We're literally talking about, normally like the building I'm in, if there's an earthquake, it's just meant to not fall on me. It's not supposed to be serviceable afterwards. It's just enough to get me out of here. And then if you fix it, it might cost more. It might be cheaper just to build a new one. Where it's a tsunami tower, like a hospital, it's literally supposed to still be serviceable after the earthquake. So
Thanks for indulging me. That's a big number. I was surprised.
yeah, I understand.
So I want to sort of think about I know that this isn't, I understand is not on the next agenda, but I want to think about how it's presented because we know that there are a lot of people who are quite vocal about not building a tsunami tower, that it'd be a waste, that it's like, you know, it'll save 300 or 400 people. Who's going to be the 404th? I'm bringing my gun and I'm going to shoot people and blah, blah, blah. Part of it is the cost. So my recommendation would be, Sarah B, you said the DOC would pick up to half of what our match is. If that can be split out when it finally comes back to council, so, you know, the city is going to be paying 12.5%, and we anticipate the DOC would be paying 12.5%. That's going to make it more palatable, at least as far as a sale, not only for the citizens, but perhaps for some of the council members as well, to say, oh, it's not really 187,000 because DOC is bringing a match in. It's really for us 90,000, and we get nearly 10 times our expenditure. So that's a pretty good leverage for the money we spend. The other thing that's going to come up is, why are we building it by the school? Can we use it as a dual purpose? We know we can still decide where we want to put it, but if it's a dual purpose to use as a observation tower for people that go up in when it's not a tsunami, which will be most of the time, perhaps that would be more palatable to people. And my third thing is, and I'll shut up, is make the project safe haven report that the University of Washington did available when all of this rolls out, because that will tell people an awful lot, and maybe even a little bit of what the Tsunami Road shows had to offer a couple of years ago, because those were very enlightening for the, you know, people who came, which I will grant is not very many, but this is going to be a tough sell.
Well,
Just some suggestions.
It's
I
already
would
been,
like to, oh, go ahead.
no, I was saying it's already been sold, though. I mean, it's not something we can stop because people don't want it to happen. You know, I mean, it's been, the money's put aside. And that, my question is, out of that match, that's the money we've already put aside for this. This isn't new money we have to come up with.
It's already been put aside. It's in the, I think, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'll speak to that a little bit. I like the idea of adding another column on that sheet that basically shows the DOC stuff as well. That's easy to do. And yes, we do have 707,000 already in our capital improvement fund set aside for the matching. So it's 3-part funding for this. It's FEMA, it's DOC, and it's city match. And we can easily make those adjustments. So what this is going to look like when we bring it to council, it's going to be 2 separate agenda items, one for Deegan Kolb and one for KPFF. And we'll update that summary. All of this will be in the agenda bill, obviously, as well. But then we'll also bring the professional service agreements so you can see what those will look like. Is there anything else you think council will need when we bring it back?
Well, I like Catherine's perspective of splitting it all out. We do need to communicate it as well as we can, you know, so that, you know, even the people that are not really for it just understand that, you know, why it's happening and how it's happening and stuff.
Well, and we have a lot of people who didn't hear the conversations that councils had 4 years ago, because we have a lot of new residents. So, you know, sort of part of our work should be educating. That's why I think the Project Safe Haven report would be helpful.
Sarah, can you speak to the application? We can't change that at this point, can we?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
We can't change the location at this point because we applied for the grant. Basically, for part of it was to save the students at the elementary school.
Yes, and when we conducted our benefit cost analysis, it encompassed the hours and the days that the children would be up at school. And this is proposed for an 800-person tower, and FEMA believes that we can actually fit up to 1,200 people within the tower. But given FEMA's parameters of a 10-foot square space per person, it equals out to about 800 people, but they estimate that actually more will be able to fit on the facility. I would reiterate that refer any newcomers to the Safe Haven project, and then again that we brought this to council and public comment in 2018 when we applied for the grant to consider any public input at that time. And we can certainly add the column in to illustrate that the Department of Commerce will be putting in the same matching portion as us.
Anything else on this one? Okay.
Thank you for getting all the free stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Scott, you want to give your update?
Sure, absolutely. And I'm just hoping, because I know the mayor follows me and I have not ran this by him. So hopefully we're going to have not the exact same report to give, but we have been extremely busy. So I will just start with sort of some good news about the city. You know, we've had time to pull the financials together from the end of last year. And we've had record economic growth in 2021. The city had a record number of permits issued that year. 239 single family homes were built. $57 million in construction value was added to the city. The building department alone processed 2,644 total permits. The assessed value of the city of Ocean Shores was also up by almost $900 million, or 95% from 2016 to 2022. And our new construction is estimated to be valued at around $78 to $80 million in 2022. And those numbers do indeed put Ocean Shores as the highest valued city in Grays Harbor. A tourism boom likewise continues. Our visitor log count estimates the number of city's visitors at 5,353,000 for last year that passed through the gates. And additionally, our hotel motel tax, as Angie pointed out earlier, was up by over 29% from the year before, and it brought in almost $1.5 million in hotel motel lodging tax revenue. Public works projects that we're working on, in addition to the tsunami tower right now and the High Dunes Trail, an erosion study. The city recently solicited and received bids, and a winner was announced from consulting firms with expertise to conduct a coastal erosion study and analysis on the southern portion of Ocean Shores. That erosion study aims to sort of build off previous work to develop long-term predictions and better understand the consequences of erosion in our city, and as well as to select mitigation alternatives for erosion. And the firm of Mott McDonald was the winner of the bid, and that will be brought to council for consideration. And two other things briefly. Truck signs, everyone who's been to council have been placed, 8 in total, along Dolphin Avenue at the request of local residents. So that is up and official and says no trucks on that road. And then lastly, the library, just get this out to any of your constituents who want to know, Ocean Shores Public Library is hosting, once again, free individual income tax preparation services. That's done by AARP. They're free, but they're in-person consultations at the library, but you have to make an appointment. And to do that, you just call 253-488-3605, and I'll give that back at council when we meet back at council. But it's a really valuable service for those people filing taxes for the city that don't have the resources to hire a professional to do it. And that's what I have.
Well, Scott, that was very well said with it. I don't have nearly as much. One that, and Sarah didn't bring it up, but Sarah has gotten grants for us almost $900,000 for last year. And that's not including the grant that we're going to get for repairing of the jetty. So that's a big number that we're going to get. So again, appreciate, Sarah, all the work that you're doing on that. She is aggressively looking at other opportunities. The council, we will have a work study session on what to do with ARPA money that's coming forward. I still encourage the council, because there's some headwinds that we're going to be running into. Whatever is going to happen with the economy, eventually I think the building is going to slow down. We have inflation that's going to be hitting us. A positive thing about inflation, at least when government goes, the government is going to get more income coming in just because of people raising prices, which is not necessarily a good thing for our citizens. But if you look at the numbers coming out of Olympia, they have more money than they've ever had. But again, what they're spending their money on, I'm not sure if I agree with it, but just things that we need to work on. And I'm glad that we have a finance committee and a public works committee to run these things through. And it just makes us better at presenting as we bring the things forward. So we just got a lot of big things coming up. But again, I hope that we as a council continue to be a little bit cautious on some of the big projects that we're going, so we don't get into the situation that the past councils in Ocean Shores have done.
Agreed.
All right. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Angie, as always.
Everybody's time.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.